As it currently stands right now, a lot of 49er fans are hitting the panic button with how the first couple days of free agency has played out. And to be fair, the 49ers have seen way more impactful players leave in free agency than they have seen players come in and be replaced by them. So we're seeing like high end guys like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, and the list goes on of guys who just have left but are getting replaced with guys on 1 year deals like Trey Brown and Jason Pinnock and, Luke Farrell. There's a long list of kind of feels like stopgaps almost like a 1 year kind of, all right, we'll plug this hole with this depth piece. But Albert Breer joined the Rich Eisen show to kind of present some context behind the whole situation that's going on. And it might actually calm you down a little bit. And I'm going to add on to what he's saying at the end of it as well, because we talked about this a little bit yesterday on live, and I want to continue the conversation moving forward. But listen to what he had to say right here.
Niner fan I know is freaking out. What's your message to Niners fans seeing what's happening, knowing what's happening, what could happen next? What are your 2 cents on that?
They found Deebo Samuel in the second round. They found George Kittle in the fifth round. They found Fred Warner, I think, in the third or fourth round. They found Brock Purdy in the seventh round. It's really hard to duplicate that. But, I mean, this is a team that has done a lot of stuff right over the 8 years that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have been in charge, and look like they made a real run at it over the last few years with the core that they had. But the reality of it is, if you looked at the roster and you looked how they were pushing money, I think at one point they had over $300 million in cap commitments for this year. That's without a draft pick on the roster. That's without signing a free agent to the roster. That's without, having some certain positions filled. And so, this time was coming. Could they have kicked the can down the road for another year or two? Maybe, but like this was the logical time to do it. And if you want real encouragement, here it is for you. The Buffalo Bills did this exact same thing last year. And the Bills, I think it was something like $65 million in dead cap they took on. They got rid of a ton of guys. And you know what ended up happening was
Yes,
a great program carried them through. The Rams 2 years ago, same thing, right? The Rams 2 years ago, they ate all of this dead money. They traded away Jalen Ramsey. What are the Rams going to do? Well, you know what? It was a front office, a coaching staff that's made a lot of good decisions over the years, continuing to make good decisions, filling out the roster. And now what do you see? You see, the Rams and Bills in a good position going forward with clean cap and a full complement of draft picks. I think that's sort of where the Niners are. Now, can they pull it off the same way the Bills and Rams did? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think there's any question they've got the right people in charge to pull it off.
So, to Albert's point, yes, we all understand that more than ever, this draft is huge. Like, this is a huge building block for the 49ers that they have to get right. They got to hit on pick 11. They got to hit at pick 43. They got to hit in the third and fourth round, just like they did last year. So I think that's where some of the hope comes from. Even though the 49ers through 21 to 23 just had brutal drafts, last year was kind of a switch. And to be fair, we had some changes in that regard, at least organizationally. Adam Peters left. You had RJ Gillen and Tariq Ahmad kind of take over together Adam Peters' role. And maybe that is a direct correlation to the draft picks that we saw, because we saw a deviation from the 49ers going for young potential stars like Drake Jackson, who I think was like freshly 21 at the time, to pivoting to more prospects that have, are fifth-year seniors and have a ton of experience. So I really do think with how everything is coming together, I think there is room for some optimism. Yes, it is jarring to see key players leave and not be replaced, but I think it is important to note that there are still key players that are still here. You still have a quarterback. The hope is that the 49ers pay him and he remains to be the quarterback. And you have Christian McCaffrey, you have Juwan Jennings, you have Ricky Pearsall, who's a first-round draft pick who really started to come on late. Brandon Ayuk hopefully gets healthy. You still have Trent Williams anchoring that offensive line. They absolutely destroyed with the selection of Dominic Pooney. They did such a great job with that pick. And, they re-signed Ben Barch. He can be a guy that could absolutely start, whether at center or guard. And you have Nick Zakelj. You have other guys who are kind of up and coming who could potentially plug those holes, not to mention the draft that they could turn to. So offensively, there really hasn't been that much changes. George Kittle is still here. So as long as the current core of the offense remains, then I think we should be okay. It's the defense that is having the most retooling that is going on. Obviously, the defensive line, the biggest glaring hole, but it's still anchored by Nick Bosa. You got up and, potential quality players like Ita Gross-Matos and Sam Okiwanu. But yes, they need to kind of restructure that defensive line. But you still have Fred Warner. You still have Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green. You have Malik Mustafa. Can Jair Brown be a guy? I mean, you've got a bunch of safeties who are clearly coming in to compete. You've gotten some cornerbacks clearly coming in to compete to be that third potential corner, but they could also turn to the draft for corner. So you have D Winters. He's an ascending, potential guy that the 49ers could rely on. So honestly, really outside of the defensive line, and the 49ers can theoretically make a couple key signings on the D line. If you go out and get Azeez Ojulari, you go out and get some depth defensive tackles that you can plug in on 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, just to be a kind of a carryover as they look for the next crop of up and coming players who will be rookies on cost controlled deals. It really isn't too crazy to believe that this team could still win next year if they attack the draft and they hit on a lot of their draft picks. I mean, I think with what they're doing, like this is we're seeing a big benefit to special teams. You're seeing a lot of special teams players come in, guys who have a lot of experience in that regard. So special teams has been a huge thorn in the 49ers side throughout the last couple of years. And at minimum, they're at least building out the depth of this roster. Now, I know fans want to see the key free agents that are going to come in and we know are going to start. But at least with what we're seeing from the San Francisco 49ers, that, hey, there is, I think there is still a path forward. And hopefully with what you heard from, Albert Breer and Rich Eisen, maybe calm you down a little bit. And again, like, look at the Rams. Look what the Rams did with the rookie Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and second-year player and Byron Young. And that they have been able to do pretty well, all things considered, with a pretty young core. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the reasons that they've had success is young players coming in and being an impact. Look at what the 49ers did last year with having Renardo Green play a lot of meaningful snaps, Malik Mustafa earning the starting role. You had Dominic Pooney, Isaac Arendo. So it's not a just automatic, oh, the 49ers are cooked next year. It can feel like that with the departures, but we still don't know what this roster is going to look like. So keep that in mind and let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.